Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq 100 index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed right here on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large-cap growth and also one of the best-performing indexes over the last decade and a half. Now, stocks were off to a weak start for the first month of the decade as hopes for a Phase 1 trade deal seemed slimmer following comments by President Trump. The president in London telling reporters that it might be better to wait until after the 2020 election to reach a trade deal with China. According to CNBC, note that tariffs increases are still on track at this point to be enacted on December 15th by the U.S. against China. So we can take a look at the chart behind me right here. This is the one-day chart of the Nasdaq 100. We can see where it's just under some pressure there, down around about 1%. All we want to note that it is off the lows. Also overnight, more tariff news, this time for the EU, as the Trump administration is proposing tariffs on up to $2.4 billion worth of French imports in retaliation for France's tax on American tech giants like Alphabet and Facebook. The Office of the U.S. Trade Representative charged that France's new digital services tax discriminates against U.S. companies. All right, we are a little bit ahead here in terms of the charts. This is actually where we are for 1 year on the Nasdaq 100. So while we are down about 1% today and 1% yesterday, we can still see that it's really strong performance. In fact, we were talking about this last week where we had the best performance in November since we saw in June. So even though there's a little bit of pressure today, you have to remember exactly where we're coming from. Now, as a result of all the trade headlines that we've seen, again, the Nasdaq 100 down about 1%. Semiconductors, no surprise. Lam Research, Xilinx, Intel, Qualcomm, Microchip, and Maxim, they're leading the way down. That's because they have exposure to the U.S.-China trade deal. On the flip side, Take-Two, VeriSign, Workday, Illumina, and Vertex, they are all in the green. Again, this chart behind me pointing out last week we were reporting all-time highs in the major averages day after day. From the Nasdaq market site in New York, I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.